All right. I think we've gotten off to a great start. It's this year's conference, and it's my distinct honor to introduce our next speaker. He has a long history in the glazing industry and is currently working with Childress Engineering. Please welcome John Rovi to talk about building your own bench, onboarding, and retention.
Thank you. This past New Year's Day, my wife and I, we had several friends over, couples, and we were going to watch one of the many 135 bowl games that are on that are as useless and meaningless as the next. One of our friends, however, is a University of Alabama alum. And so there was only one game that he was really interested in, as you might guess. And he was pretty cocky that day because, as he said to me, I'm not concerned who's going to win. I just wonder how bad Alabama's going to beat Ohio State. And so, just the way I am, my personality, I had to, get a kidney shot in or two. And I said, what makes you so cocky? He said, well, number one, we got the best talent up and down the lines. Number two, this is the SEC, right? He was kind of cocky about that as well, as many are. But he said, lastly, he said, you know what? If that wasn't enough, Ohio State has this third-string quarterback starting, redshirt freshman. It's his second college game he's ever been in. And there's no way they can win with that. I thought, now that could be true. Maybe that is part of the problem. So the game goes on, and it's starting to unfold. And I think Alabama realizes they got their hands full, and you know the history of this. Alabama does not win. I think my friend had a few more drinks New Year's Day than he did New Year's Eve after the game, you know what I mean? But it was interesting, and I never really followed this plight to this quarterback and Ohio State, basically. But now I'm engaged. I'm engaged in the championship game the following Monday, 14, 15 days later. And I said, okay, maybe the kid just got lucky in the Big Ten championship. Maybe he caught lightning in a bottle for the Alabama game. But there's no way that we'd be able to stay on the field with Oregon, the Ducks. I thought they were too fast, too good, too physical. Well, as you know the score is 42-20. Ohio State won, and they won the championship. Now, this intrigued me more than anything because I was impressed by the fact that how could this kid happen? Why is it that a third-string quarterback, redshirt freshman, third game he's ever played in, can perform the way he performed? I'm really into this now. This is interesting to me. So let's shelve that idea, and I'm going to come back a little bit later. I really live in the world of why. I read a blog for U.S. Class magazine, and several months later, I think it was sometime last year, I wrote a blog called How to Why Your Way to Success. And it was hard to say, and it's kind of hard to read, but when you understand the why, that's true. That's where it's at. Joe was up here earlier, and he said, I'm going to talk about why I moved over to where he moved from, the automotive industry. Now, that was interesting, because what he talks about is a lot of the how. In my world, the world I live in, marketing, business development, product strategy, the why is everything. So I'm going to take that question of why to many levels today. The first level is, why is it that the quarterback can play the way we play? Second, maybe, is, why are we here? Why are you in the glazing industry? Why are you here in Vegas? Is it a free vacation? With a fun at night? Maybe you attend the conference, maybe you don't. Those are valid questions. And the first question we really need to be asking ourselves is the big why. What's your big why? Joe said a little bit about his family. That's my big why. This is my why. My wife, I've been married for 30-some odd years. 3 kids out of college. My oldest is in marketing and advertising. My youngest is a college professor. My son is a genius at BMW. My wife a nurse, and every morning I get up, and You know, people ask me how are the kids, and I always say better than I deserve. And they think that's a pun, but it's true. So what's your why? Where are you in that business of why? So today I've been asked to talk about retention, onboarding, hiring, keeping people, retaining people, attracting people. I made a commitment what I was going to do is I'm not going to talk about how. There's 1,000 books that will explain how to do that. So you can only guess what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about why. What's your why? Why is it when you get in front of somebody and you really like this person, for whatever position it is, they're asking themselves the question, why should I come to work for you? I've got other options out here. I can really be doing something else. So in the business of hiring and firing, it's important that you're able to answer that question, why? Do something pretty attractive other than the obvious. Because when you do obvious selling of your company, you're really doing a disservice. So in the world of business, there are two areas that you really need to pay attention to. I would guess if I had a show of hands, everyone would really say, yes, we pay attention to this side. I would guess 99% of you wouldn't even say that's part of what you focus on. But there are two areas you need to focus on. One is talent. Second one is the culture of your company. Now, under the word of talent, you've got strategy, marketing, business plans, marketing plans, technical skills, strategy, all the things that are very trackable. On the other side is the culture of your business. Very underestimated, but very powerful, as you'll see in some of my examples. Under culture, you've got style, you've got values, you've got innovation, and you've got relationships. Now, I knew putting this together, I was going to be probably walking the line, because we're going to talk about relationships here, guys. I think those are some of the most important things you can focus on with your companies. As owners, managers, and leaders in this industry, those are really where they're at. They've got to work congruently together with one another. 90% of your competition are focused on the tech talent side. They're focused on the strategy. Why? Well, let's measure that. You can measure what that is, you can predict what it's going to be, you can work at what that is. And many of us like that. On the other side, that cultural side, that's really emotional. It's hard to measure. It's like that, how often or how much do you love your wife? Well, what's that scale? Well, there is no scale. It's just there. But it's powerful because you have to tap into that. So in this side, in these two sides, as these sort of fight to one another, the easy side to talk about or to look at is the talent side. Several years ago, I worked for this company, this huge company, global company. And they were well run. They were well managed. Business plans were great. Marketing plan was great. Everything was great. Very successful in most every segment. But what I learned was they didn't do anything unless it was measured. We'd have meetings, and the pie charts have got to be done, the graphs, the bar charts. We got to measure what it is we do. Hey, I'm thinking about this new item, this new area, this new focus, this new market. Well, let's put some data together and measure it. Okay, but what about the cultural side of this? How are we looking at this? What's the health of our company? What about innovation? How do you measure innovation? It's really hard, but it's one of the components in this that can be measured. I'm not saying it's a bad thing if you focus on those things. You have to. You have to focus on that talent side, on the business plan, the marketing plan, the business finance plan, technical skills and so forth. Most everyone in this room, and I know your competition is sitting on the other side of the room, so I'm kind of telling both of you, you're not focused on the cultural side. We're going to go through that cultural side. And what this basically is the relationships, the most important part of this culture. The relationships you have with not your customers, the relationship you have with your employees. I mentioned my mentor, Tom Haskey, who always said to me, take care of your people and people take care of you. Don't take care of your people, God help you. You're out on an island, basically, is what it is. The relationships, some of the most important relationships you have are going to be with your employees. Because they cannot have that personal commitment to who you are and what that company is and what your plan is on the other side of the equation unless you have that relationship. unless you know it. We're going to get more into detail on that. This is basically how you identify your brand. Now, I know there's not a lot of marketing people out here, and a lot of technical people, engineers, and so forth. I'll give you an example of what your brand is. My personality is my brand as a personal side. My brand to the company is my personality. So I hear people say, well, we don't really have a brand. You got a personality, you have a brand. Your company has a personality, it has a brand. So I want to bring this up because I want to really bring this clear, kind of surface a lot of this information, because this is what people are looking at when they're coming to interview with your different business units and different companies. What's the brand? What's the opportunity? What is the culture at the company? I had somebody tell me, an HR person that said, I typically show people the desk they're going to sit in because that's important. I didn't realize how important that really was. But it is. So I'm going to move on and just kind of talk about hiring for just a second. I want to give some examples because I think these are pretty good examples, which is, let's take two companies, two fictitious companies, Company A over here, and they have an unlimited budget. And they can hire whoever they want and pay them whatever they want. Okay? Company B, this is going to be the reality side of it, right? Company B has some financial restraints. They really have to stay within a budget for each of these key people that they're going to hire. So Company A is going to go out and they're going to hire nothing but 10s. Okay, so if we are going to interview someone and we rate them 1 to 10, they're 10s. Now, when you interview that 10, guess what? They are going to demand top dollars, right? I mean, they've got experience, they've got the knowledge, they've got the know-how, they've got the drive, they've proven that they can do this, and they're going to do it. And we all want the 10s, right? But then we have issues with the 10s. You got the egos, you got the infighting, you got the finger pointing, you got the personalities that you're trying to mesh together. It's kind of tough. I mean, it sounds good on paper, but it's still kind of tough. So over here at Company B, they're interviewing their people, and they interview one of those 10s. And they realize that we can't afford this person. There's just too much money. So what do they have to do? They have to fall back and pick between the 5s, the average people. Nobody in this room wants average people, do they? But the reality is that's really where you're at in hiring some of the key people that you have. So how do you differentiate between Company A and Company B? I'll go back to my chart, or not my chart, but my graphic, where it's the cultural side that really multiplies the talent. Because culture does multiply talent. Culture multiplies, amplifies, magnifies, and just exponentially drives your talent. So Company A over here, all the talent in the world, all 10s, unlimited budget and resources, put them together. Maybe there's an invite, maybe there's not. Are they going to be successful all the time, every time? The answer is probably no. If I were a Major League Baseball team and I was Company A, which team would I be? You know. It's the Yankees. Their business philosophy, their model is, I'm going to buy the best talent, I'm going to put them on the field, and I'm going to win with that talent. And I think the hardest job in all the Yankee organization is the manager who's got to try to manage that talent. Make everybody play nice in the sandbox, make sure there's enough room in the locker room for the size of the egos that are in there. And they're going to get on the field, they're going to win. But they don't win all the time. They win, but the dollar-cost ratio per win is crazy, it's stupid. And there's no way they can keep up with it. I was born and raised in Chicago. I live in Dallas, Texas now. And we have a baseball team called Texas Rangers. And I'm pretty sure we still have a football team, but we do have a football team as well. But in 2011, and I'm a big baseball fan. I played baseball growing up, and that is, to me, my sport. So in 2011, the Texas Rangers played the New York Yankees in the playoffs. Winner goes to the World Series. I'm excited about the Rangers in this because they got something that you can't measure. They got something that you just can't put your finger on. And you've had those conversations in different ways where somebody says, I don't know what it is, but they're just, it's exciting because they know how to win. They know what they're doing. Texas Rangers had that year. Starting salary, opening day salary for the New York Yankees, $242 million. Opening day starting salary, New York Yankees. Opening day starting salary for the Texas Rangers, $44 million. You just got your head handed to you by a team that you outspent 6-1. And how do you deal with that? I mean, how do you put that together? It just doesn't make sense. Because in theory, Yankees should have won, right? I mean, they're the best team, they're the best talent. Kind of like Alabama had the best talent as well. There's something more going on here, isn't there? You see, the Rangers had something that they had. They protected each other, they worked for each other, they played for each other, and they wanted to win for each other. And that's really where we're at. It's about knowing that you've got to hire and attract only average people. Sometimes you can afford to hire and attract those 10s. But the reality is, the labor pool the way it is, you know, there's employment, unemployment, and then there's employees that are just not out there for the positions we have. So how do you fill those? How do you make it attractive? Great business plan can't be enough. It's never enough. Great marketing plan is not enough. The greatest business plan, marketing plan might eke you out 3 to 5%. Maybe. Great cultural plan, 20, 30, 50%. And I'll show you examples. I can sit here for an hour and go through example after example of companies that understand their culture, pay attention to what that is, manage that culture, and celebrate that culture. Because some of you might be saying, why should I care about my culture? I'll show you why you should care. See, if you don't have a clear definition of what your culture is, don't worry about it because it's already taken care of. Your employees are basically running what your culture is right now. It's like saying, well, I don't have a personality. Sorry. The facts are, you have a personality. The facts are, your company has a culture. How are you managing that culture? And the most important question is that okay? If you're okay with the culture your employees are projecting out there, then you've really got nothing to worry about, do you? But clearly the facts are, you have a culture, you should be, and they need to be managing what that culture is. So I want to show you the first thing, Zeppo Shoes. Online shoe retailer. Now for me, this makes no sense whatsoever. Buy shoes online. I got to try them on, walk around, see how they look, see how they feel. People do this all the time. There's some females in the room, and they probably heard of Zeppo Shoes. Unbelievably successful. Why? Their company culture. How do they rate their company culture? Our number one purpose is company culture. Why should you care? Here's a perfect example. Zeppo Shoes. They're in there. They know what the importance of that company culture is. How do they attract average people and allow them to elevate themselves? Through that culture. Culture multiplies talent, always has, always will. I've got 3 kids and I showed you them. And over the years, I'm a big fan of Apple. I like to show Apple because we all understand it, we all follow it to some extent. I paid for 6 cell phone lines between kids and family, other people, parents. Through the years, we have bought every iteration of iPad, iPhone, and iPod. And every one of those I bought from the Apple Store at Willow Bend Mall in Plano, Texas. Did I have options? Yes. Could I go to Best Buy? Yes. Could I go to Walmart? Sure. I might even get it cheaper, but I don't. Why? I like the culture at the Apple Store. I don't know anyone there personally, but it's a consistent culture. I'm comfortable there. If I have any questions, they're very helpful. And there are other things I like, but I find it interesting and intriguing. I get the receipt and I have it emailed to me. And at the bottom, there's a 1-800 number, and there's a question. And the question is, tell us about your experience in the survey. Not give us your opinion. They want to know about your experience. Why are they doing that? They want to build their culture and understand what their culture is. You think Apple attracts the best engineers, the best talent out there to be able to compete with their competition? I would say they attract pretty good talent out there, but is it the best? Maybe, maybe not. But I know one thing, Samsung's not doing a good job of keeping up with Apple. Who came out with the big iPhone? I keep saying iPhone. Who came out with the big phone? The big personal phone? Samsung. Samsung's this close to having a good culture. I mean, that close. Their tagline is so good. The next best thing is already here. That is a strong tagline. But they have no culture. They've got cutting-edge stuff. Their innovation is kind of off the chart. I just saw a couple weeks ago where they've got their cell phones. You turn them on their side, and it's got this side display. Where's Apple on this? They're living the dream of their culture. Apple's eating Samsung's lunch right now. Apple comes out with a big phone. They're killing Samsung's big phone market right now. Why? I would tell you it's culture. Very big commodity, coffee. We all know Starbucks is number one, the best tasting coffee, and number two, it's the cheapest coffee out there, correct? Because that's what I hear everybody loses business for, because they outbid us and they like them better. If you know me, it's a bunch of crap. If you say we lost the business because of the price, that's the excuse they give you. The reason is something else. You didn't lose that business because of the price. You lost that business for a reason. You're just not smart enough, or maybe you just don't have a grasp around what it is you really lost that business. People never buy because of price. Coffee. You line up 10 coffees in front of me, I wouldn't know one to the other, but I am a loyal Starbucks guy. And when Starbucks came to Dallas, I wanted to hate them, and I did. Why am I loyal now? I like the culture. I like the experience in Starbucks. I mean, it's really hard to get used to saying from small, medium, large into saying grande, venti, and tall. I still really get confused with that, but it is what it is. Dunkin' Donuts, they have culture? Nah. I mean, they got the greatest thing in the world. They got donuts. How excited are you when people bring donuts to the office? How excited to a store like that has something to sell, and now all they have there is donuts. Still, they can't compete with Starbucks. Why? It's their culture. Then they attract better people. Then they pay better at Starbucks because they're able to do that. I love this too. The commodity of all commodities is the airline seat. The same planes, people, the same seats. What differentiates Southwest from American than JetBlue or any of the other cheap discount people? What is Southwest doing? Do they pay their people better? No. Are they better managed? Do they have better financial statements? Do they have better marketing plans, business plans? No. What do they have far and above over any other airline carriers? A culture that maintains, creates, and invigorates people to take their talent to the next level. Culture always multiplies talent. Always has, always will. The sooner you hear this, understand it, and know it, I don't care how good a marketing plan you have, how good a business plan you have, how much money you have, culture eats marketing plan, and business plan, strategy for breakfast. Always has, always will. Okay, 2 examples there. What does this mean to you, your business, your company? I'm very visual, so I got to see things in pictures and in different things. So, what is that company culture? What does that look like to you within your business and so forth? So, for the most part, these quadrants kind of represent different areas, and it's going to kind of be tough to explain, but I'll try. So, the top 2, manage and provide. Manage and sell. You manage what you do, you sell what you provide. I'll give you an example. Children's engineering work consulting firm. What do? Well, we write specs, we do mock-ups, we do design on systems, we do some site investigations, we do other things in that regard as a company. That's what we do. That's what we manage. Okay? Over here, what do we sell? We're not selling that. That's not why our customers are buying us. They're buying the benefit of what we do, right? Because they can get specs and mock-up and all that other stuff anywhere else. What we do is we sell assurance. We sell peace of mind. We sell the fact that it's going to be done right. We're going to look at the details. We're going to look and make sure that it's all done correctly. That's why that architect, engineer, owner, developer buys us. They want to make sure that they can sleep at night knowing that that project's done right. So that's the difference between manage what you do, sell what you provide. Now the bottom quadrant is the tricky one. Your internal perception and your external perception. or I like to say the external reality, because perception is reality. What your customers think of you as a company is kind of like what your friends think of you as a person. It's the same thing. You really can't monitor that. It's just how you exemplify how you live. So the internal perception that we have, if we've got all tens, great people, great innovation, and all this wonderful stuff working for us, we have a pretty inflated opinion of ourselves, right? Then we really focus on what we do and what we manage, and we don't pay a lot of attention to our customer. You can see the side on in blue, that's the cultural side. That's your customer. That's perception. Those are things that are hard to manage, hard to measure, hard to predict. On the other side, the gray side, that's your capital side. Business plan, financial plan, marketing plan, go-to-market plan, all the management stuff that's out there. So what happens when we get a little off balance here? What happens when we get too big with our own head? We think we're better than we really are. Now we don't pay attention to our external perception that our customers have of us, or the reality that we have. So if we're hiring people, attracting people, and trying to bring them in, and they hear and see we really have a big opinion of ourselves, it's a little tough to bring in those kind of people. It's a little bit tough to work with some of those people as well. But trust me, it all has to be looked at, and it's got to be looked at equally, because as you know, it's easy to look at and to focus on the talent side of the equation as opposed to that cultural side. Again, your people, the people you work for, the employer that work for you, your employees, if you don't control your culture, they will. They always will. Excuse me. Okay, so on the culture side, that's where we are. So let's start in where we're at. To be a company that is a positive culture company, you've got to be a value-based company. You've got to be a value-based company. And you've got to be able to have those values that people can aspire to, be attracted to, and live by. Number one, they know you're going to live by them. Number two, you know they're going to live by them as well. So it's a reciprocating thing. Now, there are different methods and different ways that you can attract people and different values you can have, one of which is through money. I like using the media, movies and TVs as examples because we all get that. Now, is it bad to have a business model that is geared around paying people really well? I use the example of Wall Street here. There was only one company value that company had. Only one. I'm going to be the richest guy in the world, and if everybody else gets rich, so be it. He was pretty successful at it as well. Here's the question. Is that sustainable? Proof's in the pudding? No, it's not. Is it important to have a good part of it? Yes. That's how you're going to attract good people, especially salespeople. Pay them well. Have the value system there, then you're going to be fine. No value system, only money, incongruent. It's not going to work. It may work for a while, but it's not going to work. You know, a couple references to the Army and the Navy. And this is sort of the unwritten motto that the Marines live by. And I know there are people that manage this way. The beatings will continue until morale improves. I love that. It really exemplifies maybe something that some of your people who work for you think. Maybe that's your management style. I don't know. But it's interesting that these are a couple of different styles that you can work with, that you can do. And raising morale is one thing. And raising morale is good. I mentioned donuts in the morning. I mean, that's a morale raiser. That's good. You know, here's another morale raiser, right? I'm just going to raise morale. But the question is that sustainable? The answer is no. It's not sustainable. And it's not going to work typically. So, when you sit down and you want to define what your core values are, what it is you want to do, what it is you want to stand for as an owner, as a manager, as a leader in this industry, what are some of those things? You know, is it money-driven? Is it morale-driven? Is it browbeating? Is it just being that tyrant that's out there? I love this because I hate it. Okay? We have an open-door policy. If you watch any of the Peanuts cartoons, anytime the kids are talking, you can hear them clearly. But anytime the parents are talking, it's like, okay, it's noise. That's what this is to me. We have an open door policy. Having hinges on your office door does not make an open door policy. It just doesn't. I mentioned earlier that what my kids do. My youngest daughter is a university college professor. She teaches communications. And so I said to her, Christy, I need a little help. I've got a presentation put together. It's on onboarding and recruiting. She said, Dad, I don't know anything about it. I said, no, but there's a dynamic here. And so she was texting or something, and she said, she saw this slide, and she said, well, talk about, here's what I do. And so she said, in her syllabus every year, she puts on that on Tuesdays and Thursdays, she's in room 123 between 2 and 3 o'clock. Come in unannounced, without a schedule. You want help? You want tutoring? You want to talk about something? Come in. Here's a challenge for you. As an owner, as a manager, as a leader, why don't you put a true open door policy to work for you? Go ahead and send an email out to all your employees. I know this can be problematic if you've got several thousand or several hundred. But just think about it. I'll be in the conference room once a month, on Thursday, first Thursday of the month, from 2 to 4. Unannounced, come in, open forum, safe place. You got a complaint, bring it. You got a compliment, bring it. You got a personal issue, bring it. I would even challenge you to, for the first month, do it every week. Now, don't you dare do this in your office, okay? That's not equal ground. You need to do this in the conference room, library, open an office. Have something to do, work on it. Somebody comes in, you clear that out. And you have undivided attention. You talk about open door policy with some teeth, that's an open door policy. Because pretty much this is what we're used to as employees. What's the open door policy? Listen, I'm too busy. Whatever you got to say, it's not as important as what I'm doing right here and now. What does this do? All this does is it makes me think, I got something else to say. If I got to ask him anything else, I'll do it later because it just doesn't have time. All you're saying here is, I don't care. And in a relationship, as I mentioned in one slide, the relationship is everything. Relationship with your employees. So putting these core values together, the easiest thing to do is to go on Google and start looking up what are core values. Looking at your clients, not your clients, but your competition and saying, I wonder what their core values are. Maybe we can steal some of theirs and use theirs. Have some core values with some teeth. Don't have a bunch of platitudes out there like, we encourage collaboration and honesty and an opening spirit. I mean, again, it's nothing but noise. People know you don't care about it because you're just throwing stuff out there that doesn't mean anything. Put some values together, have some teeth. I read a value, a company value that this company had that they said, there will never be more than X percentage of difference between the lowest paid employee and the highest paid employee. That's our value system. I thought, wow, that is amazing. That's a value system with some teeth now. People look at that and go, yeah, I want to be a part of that. But you can't give what you don't have. So we individually need to come up with what that value system is and be able to communicate that. Because we're only as attractive as we are value-based. And we're only as value-based as to what our culture can communicate. So I put a couple of things in here. You guys have the slides on thumb drives. As far as some of these are really good, some of them are just very platitude-oriented. I would suggest, get 5, 7, 9 people together. Always an odd number if you don't want equal voting. Come up with something instead of nothing. And talk about these things, what values are to each of these people. And I'm not talking about your level 1 management group. Your cronies, your buddies. Get somebody in there who's got a birth age of somewhere 2 or somewhere in there. And then maybe a 3. Because they got some stuff in that's important to them that's not even the least bit important to you. And you may be missing the boat. Because I look around up here and I'm one of them with a lot of gray hair. And as we bring these people in, we've got to make that attractive for them to be there as well. And the most important thing, and this is really hard for a lot of us, it's hard for me, proportionate to what you have physically, listen twice as much as you talk. And here's the key. Okay, so people say, well, I listen a lot. I'm a good listener. The only reason you're a good listener is because you're thinking about what you're about to say. Back. Here's being a good listener. Listen, acknowledge, take it in. Don't give an opinion back. Don't give a reason back. Say, I understand. Maybe ask a question afterwards. But listen. Listening is I could talk for a long time about that. At Children's Engineering, we have many meetings that we'd start. We'd always start with complaints, problems, and it would just end that way. Not a lot of times, but sometimes. If you get into a management situation and you go to a meeting and every meeting is just a beat down, why don't you stop? We have something, every meeting that we start every day starts with positive focus and basically in gratitude. I couldn't think of the word there. When you start with positive focus and gratitude, it may take 2 minutes. It may take 15 minutes. But you know what? The meeting starts and it runs very smooth. And guess what? In a reciprocal way, we're learning about everyone's personal lives there to some extent. Volleyball tournaments, mothers in nursing homes, problems with kids. It happens. Life goes on. It really does. So we talk about the core values. We talk about how important it is to be able to establish those core values within that framework of your culture. Now we're going to talk about that touchy-feely stuff, guys. I know it's not comfortable, but get over it. Relationship you have with your employees is the most important relationship that you can establish, have, and create. I would venture to guess many leaders that you may work for, that work for you, have no idea about your personal life. None whatsoever. What a tragedy. What a tragedy. Because when you hire that person hired you, guess what? In came the baggage. Your baggage, my baggage, relevant baggage. I mean, let's not fool each other. It's real. And if you think that person that you just hired comes to work and checks that baggage out the door and then comes in and is, yeah, fresh, let's go. Okay, you're fooling yourself at best. Hallucinating at worst. Dealing with that up front and understanding that is very real. Because, and I say this time and time again, business is about doing business with people you like. That's about mine. I mean, that's not all of it, but that's the foundation of it, for the most part, is doing business with people you like. It's like being married. You're like being married to someone you don't like, do you? I mean, no doubt. And you spend more time with the people you work with than you do with your spouses. So why not look at it as a marriage? Because it is. You see, the relationships you have at work are vitally important. So as an owner, as a manager, as a leader, why not develop that relationship that you have with them? See, because leadership, and I look at these two things synonymously with one another. Leadership and relationship are the same word. They should be. I mentioned sports before. And again, in Dallas, we have a football team. We had a coach there for 878 years, Tom Landry. Great guy. Great leader. Because he knew his players personally. Well, the new regime came in. We got Jerry Jones. We got Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson could care less. Well, let me say that. Let me back up. The perception was Jimmy Johnson could care less about anything about the players other than how they perform. So when he first came onto the scene, his whole thing was, we're going to kick butt, we're going to go, and that's just the way it is. You see, because for the most part, this is what they were doing is he managed in a way that was nothing more than just kicking people's butt. I mean, he's the one that started the athletic field over there. He cut the player after that because the guy was short of breath. So he never had a relationship with any of his players, and so his leadership really took a long time to develop. And what he really did is, after a while, he finally did get to the point where he could lead those players because he did develop relationships with them. And he did do that. In order to have a great relationship, You've got to excel in these two areas. You've got to have unbelievable gratitude and patience. I mean, you've got to be gracious beyond measure. And I don't mean being taken advantage of. I mean gracious beyond measure. Those two things with the relationship is where your leadership is going to come from. You know, I want to tell a story about a company. I was in the construction business. I was in a PM, and I wanted to move into the sales and marketing business. And we worked, and so I was able to get this job in the wholesale lumber business. Now, it's a little bit different. Wholesale lumber, you buy lumber like stocks and water. Buy low, sell high. I was in the specialty products. And the company that I worked for was based out of Boston. And it was a company I'd never heard of. But I know you heard of our competition. Weyerhaeuser, Louisiana Pacific, and Boise Cascade. And I think our company was firm and humble. Nobody knew us. But we had a philosophy. We had a culture. And that culture was kick ass and take names. And we were good. Louisiana Pacific, Boise Cascade, Weyerhaeuser couldn't touch us. We owned the Home Depot, Lowe's, Payless, 84 lumber markets. We owned that market of specialty products. We got a ton of their business in the commodity side as well. Why? Our culture was we were not going to compete. That was our culture. And every one of us who worked there, you know, the old adage, you take a bullet for this guy, you run through brick walls. This little Jewish man, about 5'3", he had feet that were this big. I mean, he was just different that way. But the guy cared. We had 300 employees, and he knew a lot about all of them. Over the years, you can't know that all at once. And he wanted to make sure that the balance between your personal life, your professional life, and your spiritual life was all looked at. He would ask me, how are the kids? Going to church? You're working too much? Get the job done, but make sure you take care of things at home. He was great. I loved him. He was somebody that just led with a very mild demeanor. But he led because he was compassionate, he was very patient, and he had unbelievable gratitude about how he did that. And that was really our company culture. I love working there. And so what do you do if you're Boise Cascade, Louisiana Pacific, and Weyerhaeuser, you can't compete with this mold called Furman lumber? You try to undercut the pricing and it doesn't work, and they still lose the business to us? Well, if you're Boise Cascade, then you come and buy us. And they did. They paid handsomely. And so what happened? Boise Cascade now took their culture and just came right over it, and Furman's lumber's culture was gone. Within 3 years, 70% of the people that were at Furman lumber were gone. See, because now we had to measure everything. I was making more money than my branch manager in Dallas, and that was okay. But at Boise Cascade, that's not okay. There's a hierarchy. And it just changed. So that's pretty much what happens. Culture is so important, and relationship is so important. I like to use media again as good examples. So this is a TV show, and it's not very popular, but man, I like it. It's called Undercover Boss. Have you ever watched it? If you haven't watched it, it's about people who are in big companies, small companies, medium companies. The owner or the CEO gets dressed up, and I call them Halloween costumes, because they're so bad. But they try to dress up as a normal person. And they go and they want to work on the front lines. Okay? And I know, going into this, each one of these guys and girls, they get into this and they get into disguises and they think, you know what? I'm going to find out why our business strategy is not right. I'm going to find out why our marketing plan is not right. I'm going to get in there and just find out if the customer is what we're doing wrong. And I think that's what they go into it with. But I think when they leave, because what they're doing is they're working with their low level, if you will, line people. I mean, right there, the bottom line people, the ones that are dealing with customers and clients, and dealing with what's going on assembly lines and so forth. And what they find out is they really enter into a relationship. Every one of them find out a little bit more about their employees. They find out what makes them tick. And all of a sudden they begin to realize, okay, it's not about the marketing plan, it's not about the business plan. It's about the employees. If I take care of my employees, they'll take care of me. And here's a picture at the end of the show. They always get back together And they're always amazed at what obstacles every one of these employees have to overcome to come to work every day. They might have a child who's autistic. They might have a mother that is driving them crazy through Alzheimer's or something. They might have a divorce going on. If you know an employee that's working for you for 5 years and they're coming to work every day 7:30, 7:31, maybe 7:29, and all of a sudden they show up at 8:15, so you're chewing them out because of late, or you're trying to understand why. That's all part of that culture that is attractive or not attractive to you. That's all part of what you do as a business, as a company. Because in this room, there are a lot of people who have a lot of knowledge. And quite frankly, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And it's true. It's true because it doesn't matter where it's coming from, it's how it's perceived and how it's communicated. Nobody knows how much you care. Nobody cares how much you know, I'm sorry. Nobody really does, until they know how much you care. And I don't think there's a truer statement than that. I love this because it cuts right down to the core. Underwhelm people with what you know and overwhelm them with what you do. That's what's important there. So why should you care about the power you have? As leaders, as managers, as owners, you have power over your employees. I'll go back to my college professor daughter. I said, Christy, I got to have something that talks. I don't know what it is. And you know, she said, Dad, you do a lot of this, but I just label it. And I said, yeah, I know. That's why I need a label. I need something that you know, these are much smarter people than I am. So I got to, impress them with what I know so I can use my kids. Isn't that how we work? I said, Christy, I need something that talks about the relationship in an employee-employer relationship. She said, Dad, just use the 5 power that, the 5 pieces of power that you have over employees. I said, 5 pieces of power, yeah. So she starts going through this stuff. It's really intriguing because I didn't know there was such a thing. Okay? So, you have different power that you have over people. And they're categorized. You have coercive power, legitimate power, the power of reward, expert power, and reverent power. Now, the rules of this is that they're not mutually exclusive. You can have 2 of these. Let me go back to my days at Furman Lumber. Very crying. President, quiet, soft-spoken. He had my reverent power. I would do anything for that company, for that guy, because I knew he had my back, and I knew he wanted the best for me. And if something happened to me, both personally and professional, he would watch out for us and for me. But he also had reward power for me, because he paid me really well. Jimmy Johnson, I mentioned earlier with the Cowboys. Okay, busting people up, knocking them down. A lot of sports places are this way. Coercive power, the power of punishment. You work for me, I'm going to manage you this way. You don't get this done, you're out of here. That's power. You know it. Legitimate power, obviously, is the power of authority, as my daughter tells me. I'm going to teach you this student, that's just the way it is. The expert power is somebody who just knows, and they have the power over you. I would venture to say that if you don't have something other than expert power, you really don't have much power, because you really need to have something reverent power. But these are very real, and they're very real from the standpoint of how you deal with people, and how people deal with you. Because a lot of times there's that line to be crossed. If all you have is reverent power, and now, all of a sudden, that relationship becomes very friendly. And then maybe you as a manager want some of your people to do something, and they don't feel like you have enough power over them. And they just say, nah, I'm not going to do it because I can do this on my own. There's some things you have to watch out for with this. So the power component of this is very strong, very important, and one that we really have to monitor and stick to and so forth. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this Ohio State game. I watched the game that Monday night. This kid, redshirt freshman, 3rd string quarterback. 2 teams came, 3 teams. The Big Ten championship, the Sugar Bowl, and then the national championship. 3 teams couldn't be the 3rd string quarterback. Are you kidding me? Really? That just kept going through my head. Third game he's ever played in. I'm watching the press conference. This is how into it I am. I'm watching the press conference on ESPN 8, whatever. And one of the reporters asked a question I loved. He said, "So how is it, and why can you explain that you played the way you did in this game and throughout these 3 games?" And he just sort of nonchalantly said, "I played the way all of us on the team played, and the way our coach taught us how to lead, how to play, and how to live." I thought, okay, there's something more to this. Now, I know Urban Meyer's the coach of Ohio State. I've got a brother-in-law who's University of Florida alum. And so when that happens, you just become a Florida fan. So during the heyday of Urban Meyer at the University of Florida, I've been to several games over at the Swamp. So here's a coach who's got 2 national championships. He's got the elite team of elite teams in the University of Florida. He's got his pick of the talent in the country, basically, and he's unhappy at Florida. He's burned out. I don't know if I can coach anymore. I think I'm just burned out being coaching. Was it a heart attack? Was it a chicken bone? Was it anxiety? He quit University of Florida. You know what happens when you do that? You go have an affair. Your life is gone. I mean, you're a broken man at Urban Meyer at, in the height of his career. It's everything, in his industry, he hit the pinnacle. He was on top, and he wasn't even happy. He could care less. He quits University of Florida because he just doesn't know what life is all about anymore. He goes work for ESPN. So here's the rest of the story. He goes work for ESPN, and he's not happy there either. So he's going on a recruiting trip for ESPN. He's getting on a plane in Hartford, Connecticut. He's going to fly to San Francisco. Good friend of his, Todd Blackledge, says, "Hey, Urban, got on a plane trip? So I got something for you." So he gives him this book to read. And he reads this book. Now, I don't know this, but after Ohio State beat Alabama, I got a friend of mine who's with Temple, Ohio State, Temple who's here. Charlie Conn said, "John, I went in a great game." Now he's, oh my gosh, I'm going to say this, but he's one of the Ohio State fans that just, during football season he wears red, it's probably going to have an O on it. It's just obnoxious Ohio State fan. I love it. He said, "You heard the story, right?" I said, "What story?" "The Urban Meyer story in the book." I said, "Okay, what about this book? Tell me about this book." So Urban Meyer reads this book on the plane. He gets off the plane. He finds the author. He texts a message to the author. He said, "I got to find you. I got to talk to you." And the book is called Leave for God's Sake. There's Urban Meyer at Prescott for it's a YouTube video talking to Urban Meyer. This guy wrote this book. He's a college basketball coach, NCAA, Division I basketball coach. He was at the same place Urban Meyer was. And my friend Charlie said, "John, you talk about why so much that I just get nauseated hearing you say why. Why is it a question? Why is it a question?" This book is all about asking the why question. And then asked Urban Meyer, "Why are you here? What are you doing?" He thought he was supposed to be here to win. That's what Urban Meyer thought. What he realized is he's here to champion people and to manage them into leaders. That's why a third-string quarterback, redshirt freshman, in his 3rd college football game can go out and perform the way he performed. You see, he wasn't under pressure to be perfect. He was far from it. The only pressure he was on was to perform and to use the God-given talents that he was given. And did he make mistakes? Yes. Just like you make mistakes at work. Just like I made. It's going to happen. And it's a good book because it talks about leadership. It talks about dealing with people. And more importantly, it talks about how the relationship between people and yourself are so important. Not talking about recruiting. You've got people that are now coming to Ohio State. Not only in kids signing scholarships, but you got a major college football team who just lost a running back coach who left University of Notre Dame to come to Ohio State as a assistant backup coach. And I read the interview and said, "Why'd you go? You dropped in the job description." He said, "It was an investment in the leadership of what I learned." That's how you recruit. That's how you retain people. Is you better have a story, you better have a culture that's going to be attractive for people, not in a professional sense only, but on a personal and a professional sense. Both. If you don't touch both sides of that personal and professional, kind of like the talent and the cultural, that's how they work together. This all works together. If all you're focused on is the talent side and the business plan and the marketing plan and the financial plan, you are so missing the boat. Because again, your competition, they're not worried or thinking about this either. This is the way for you to move up into that better world. So now what do? I figure I can give you something. I give you a lot of big picture stuff. But there's some things you really should be doing, okay? Or could be doing. I don't want to sound so presumptuous. Develop your culture, your personality. It's got to start with values. What's your value system? Early on I said, why are you here in Las Vegas? Here's the bigger question. Why are you here? That's a great question. Urban Meyer asked himself that question, why am I here? Am I here to win? No. You're not here to win. Create a value system that's great for you. Be gracious beyond measure. Have patience beyond measure. And that's easy for me to say, have patience. Instant gratification is not fast enough for me. I struggle with patience. But I know that, and I try to be patient. And I'm sure there's something that every one of us here has to worry about, has to deal with as well. Relationships, bring them, cultivate them, encourage them, have them always in a conversation. You want to have a relationship with these people. Everyone's got a story. I was talking to someone yesterday in the reception. I said, you look around this room. Easiest thing to do is to look at everyone and go, boy, they're so successful. Aren't they great? Aren't they educated? They don't have to deal with near the crap I had to deal with coming here where I'm at or dealing with what I'm dealing with today. The reality is, everybody's got a story. Everybody's got something that they can hit in the groin, knock the wind out, punch in the stomach. We've all been there. And if you don't realize that, don't understand it, this just in, it happens. People you work for, people you're interviewing to come work for you, they're doing it too, and they're dealing with it as well. And lastly, there's mirrors in your house for a reason. Examine. Look at yourself. Look at who you are, where you are, and ask the important question. Is that okay? Am I okay with where I'm at and what I'm doing? Because that's going to really amplify and multiply all the way to the company culture you're at. If you're an owner, if you're a manager, if you're a leader in this industry, it starts not out there, not with these crappy employees and these crappy different things that we have to deal with. It's all right here. Every bit of it. And when you're able to take that to that next level where you can be okay, you can be the leader that you need to be, the leader that people want you to be, they'll follow you, and they'll always be with you. And lastly, you should care because as leaders, as owners, as managers in this business, we have responsibility to the people that work for us to give them the opportunity, the foundation for them to be great. If there's a lesson that Urban Meyer learned in that book, and that I learned, and it was interesting, is people want to be great. They don't want to be mediocre. Their experience in their past may be mediocre. They want to be great. How do we bring that foundation, that thing, whatever you want to call it, that platform for them to be great, to be elevated? Because when you hear people that say, gee, I could be doing so much better, I could be doing so many more things, you may be thinking that right now. They didn't have much crap to worry about. I could be doing so many great things. Much of it has to do with the noise that's out there that really doesn't make a lot of sense to us. It has a lot to do with how we are personally and how we live our lives and how we conduct ourselves. So as you go on to attract great people and great things and do great things, the only way you're going to do that is through, again, I'll say it, company culture. Culture multiplies talent, it exemplifies, it magnifies your talent. Always has, always will. Thank you.